Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey, podcast listeners, Jason here. In this episode, I had the opportunity to sit down with Steve Cohn, president of Premier Beauty Supply, based just a little north of Chicago. One of the things I love about Steve's organization is the way that they've embraced technology, and particularly e-commerce selling. I think what's great about their organization is that they've found a balance between that e-commerce sale and the traditional outside sales consultant. You know, in many organizations, they feel like e-commerce will eliminate that outside sales consultant. But in Steve's company, they found a way to kind of bring both of those together and have them work together in balance. Anyway, I enjoyed the conversation, and I hope you will too. All right. Hey, Steve, thank you so much for coming on Distribution Talk. How are you doing today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure. Distribution Talk, we love to go back and find out, how you got started, what got you interested in the distribution business, or maybe you fell into it or got roped into it. That often happens as well. But if you could just share with our listeners, how did you get involved with the organization?
Yeah, it was an interesting ride. I very quickly graduated from college. My first job out of school was actually working in a restaurant chain. And, after about 30 days of doing that, I realized it wasn't the right thing for me. And my dad was in the shoe business, the wholesale shoe business. And I went to work for him. And was my first taste of distribution. I learned from being a salesperson on the streets, and I really enjoyed it. And my father-in-law was in the beauty business, and he had a distributorship that sold hair care at the retail level. And I thought that'd be a little bit, I was interested in it. And I went into that business. I really enjoyed it. And I realized after a period of time, I just wanted to do my own thing. And they were at the retail level. They didn't do anything with salons. And I felt that, I wanted to try it, do something on my own. And I went into the distribution at the salon level.
Now, it's kind of interesting. You had your start there in that really more retail focused situation. So, that would be selling to, people who have things on the shelf. How is that different than the wholesale business or spending more time on this salon side? What are the nuances between the two of them?
It's really interesting. I always thought to myself, distribution is distribution, whether you're selling a bottle of shampoo or you're selling a pen, still the same concept. And I think there's a lot of similarities, but even though you're still selling shampoo, at the retail level, you're selling a lot of shampoo to a department, to a drug chain or to a drug store, where with salons, it's a much smaller ticket sale. So it's almost a different type of sale than what I was doing before. Our average sale is, let's call it $400 or $500. Back then, it was a lot more.
In that retail environment, would you say, and I know this is, maybe this is a sensitive area, but was it a lower margin in that retail side?
Yes, it was much lower margin, much lower, but it was obviously a lot more volume. Okay. And that was a trade-off.
Yeah. Well, again, a lot of the distribution channels that I spend time in, they do have a lot of, volume. And so they tend to be traditionally in a lower gross margin, and I think it's very difficult for them. Frankly, it doesn't give a whole lot of wiggle room, or else you're not making any money on a sale. It's pretty tight, whereas it sounds like your organization and the folks in your space that have a little bit more room there.
Yes, and I think also on the retail level, their needs are totally different than at the salon level. And when you're at the retail level, back then they were looking for advertising dollars and a lot of different things. Where at the salon level, they're looking more for education. And it's very interesting. They both get there the same way, just different avenues.
Yeah. Speaking of that, it seems like, that's something I've learned about the beauty industry is that the education is really pretty spectacular. It's really a big piece, or it's actually a very large piece of your operating expenses as well.
Yes, you're in the service business. And when you're dealing with somebody in the service business, they have to understand how to use your product in their service. And the only way from doing that is from training them.
Now, do your sales consultants perform that, or do you have a specific training staff, or do you rely on the manufacturers for that?
Yes, all the above.
All the above, okay.
In the perfect world, the salespeople do a lot of the product knowledge on the non-service related items. Service to me is hair color, anything that the stylist uses to support a service. On the retail side, the salespeople can do that product knowledge, but a lot of times we have a lot of educators that are part-time for us to do that, along with utilizing some of the manufacturers. And we also have full-time people on staff for some of our brands that do that as well.
Gotcha. Yeah, for the full-time people on staff, for a particular brand, is that something that the manufacturer supports you on? Financially, or is this something that, hey, this is just coming out of company pockets here?
It's a combination of both. We
Okay.
co-share with a lot of them.
Okay.
So we share with them.
Yeah, I suspect it's pretty expensive endeavor, and so I remember back from my distribution career that we every once in a while we would do a little sharing between the manufacturer and ourselves in especially in educational environments, things like that.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. There's a lot of stuff that's co-shared, and a lot of things fall upon them, and of course, a lot of things fall upon us. That kind of falls in the middle.
Now, I've always wondered with these educational opportunities, are these, again, basically on the house, or do you charge for these services for these educational sessions?
Depending what it is, but if it's done in salon as a startup, when they first take on a brand, it's usually we do that free of charge as part of the bringing them up to speed on the product. For continuing education down the road, depending on the brand, that's something that us hairdresser would pay for.
Okay. I know that a lot of distributors have really been trying to find ways to monetize their services. And because it is so expensive in distribution, that's really, the value add is that's really what differentiates anyone. But it is extremely expensive, and especially education can be, quite expensive. So I know that there are some distributors out there, not necessarily in this channel, that have monetized their services, and they've actually turned that into a profit center, which is a fabulous idea in my opinion.
Yeah, that's my first choice. I want to meet those people. But,
Absolutely. Well, there's one I'm trying to get on the show here, and I'm going to get him on here so he can talk about that. So
but I think every business has a different set of rules, right? And in our industry, it's pretty competitive when it comes to education, and it's very important because once a hairdresser's trained and they have a buy-in with the brand, the brand's going to do that much more. And so it's part of our marketing, I guess, is the education.
Steve, I'm glad you brought up brand, because that's always kind of been a hot button for me. I've always, believed that, the most important brand is your company brand, is the premier brand in this case. I think looking at your industry, the manufacturer's brand is really pretty important in the eyes of that end user. Is that correct?
Yes.
Unfortunately, it kind of puts you in a vulnerable position with that the manufacturer then, starts to dictate the rules of engagement and all of those types of things. That does make it a little more difficult and a little tense in the relationship.
I think it does, and our goal is always to be a great partner, and we want to be a really good partner for our manufacturers and also for our customers. And we found that the better partner we could be and the more transparent we could be with our manufacturers, we get the same respect back from them. And so I feel very comfortable saying that we have a really good relationship with all of our manufacturers. And I think we worked hard at that over the years. And it's all about, being a good partner to them and making them feel like they're the only manufacturer we have. And that's important to us.
Now, do you have any in-house brands? I mean, do you private label anything, or have you gone down that road at all?
No, we've looked at different opportunities. In our industry, I feel that salons really want a brand from a manufacturer. We found that what we do best is distribution. And the model of being, coming out with your own brand just never was something that we were interested in.
Oh, I've worked with a couple different beauty supply companies, and I know that one of them has their own nail polish, for example. That's their own brand, and actually they manufacture in-house, which scares me to death. It looks like a bomb shelter in there when they're putting this stuff together. But
I would imagine. But I think for our model, we figured out what we try to be good at, and we just try to stick to that.
And I think that's very wise. Again, with the margins that that this industry affords you all, going and trying to find this lower source, by either private labeling or doing something of that nature, isn't as necessary, in my opinion.
And I agree with you. I don't think the extra margin that you're making is worth. Listen, you got to carry inventory, you got to build the brand, you got to market the brand, you have to do all the back end stuff. So I'm not quite sure, outside of having equity in your own brand, what the gain is, at least for us, after you put all that time and energy into it.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. Again, I think, in the industries where you see, single digit to teens in gross margin, then that's when they have to look at something different, a different idea. But
I agree with that.
Kind of going down that relationship with the suppliers there, I understand you, back in 2007, you had a really difficult moment in the organization. Could you share that with us?
Sure. Yeah, difficult is a good way of describing it.
That's one way to say it, yeah.
That's one way to say it. We had one manufacturer that wound up selling their business to another manufacturer. And at the end of the year, that manufacturer told us that they were going to go with their own distribution chain. We had another manufacturer that was, we had a long-term contract that was up at the end of the year. and they made a decision that they wanted to go with one distributor for the whole country, and it just didn't include us. But our agreements were up, and they were able to do what they wanted to do afterwards. But it wound up being a huge chunk of our business that we lost. All within, I found all this out within 2 weeks of each other.
And that large chunk of business almost put you out of business, did it not?
It was really close. Yeah, it was very crippling. They say timing's everything. It just wasn't good timing. But it was,
Right.
it was over 90% of our overall business was between those manufacturers.
And for those listeners, hearing that, 90%. I mean, for most people that own companies, if 90% of their sales or their revenue went away, they're hanging up the cleats. They're walking away. They say, that's it. We're done. Hopefully I can pay my debts and I got to move on. But you're a fighter. You did not give up on this.
Yeah, I think that, when those kinds of things happen, there's so many different roads people can take. I looked at the industry, and there was a lot of consolidation going on at the time. And I sat down with my wife, and I just, she obviously knew the situation, and I thought we had another run left in us. I was still young enough at the time that I was ready to do it. I saw there was still an opportunity for us. And things happen, and that's just business, right? We didn't do anything wrong here. And I just felt we had another run left in us. And she was on board with me, and we just started from scratch again.
Now, again, with those two brands really making up that 90% of that revenue, what lessons did you learn from that? I mean, have you, spread that out a bit, or what's kind of been the biggest takeaway from that, very difficult 2-week notice there?
Yeah, you know what? I learned a lot. First of all, you learn a lot about yourself, right? It takes a lot of mental toughness to get through that. And I chose throughout the whole thing to take the high road because there really isn't any other road to take. I want to take all my energy, instead of worrying about the past, to put it into the future and to figure out how to make Premier evolve into the next level. And when you have, at that point, I think it was like about 17, 18 years that we had a great history. And how do you reinvent that history going forward? And so we took a hard look at everything. And really, I look back today at 2007, and I wonder if we'd be where we are today if 2007 didn't happen, because it gave us a chance to reinvent ourselves. At the time, we kind of lost who we were. We started out with one core competency, and we kind of started evolving into a me too as we got bigger. And this gave us a chance to reinvent ourselves. So I think it was probably the best thing that could have happened to us. As painful as it was at the time, I think it was really good for us.
It's interesting that you say that. I also share that same feeling. I watched some changes in my family business. 2007 and 2008 were really bad. But earlier than that, even, we went through a very difficult consolidation of our company as well. Literally, I think it went from 9 locations down to 4 locations. And as painful as that was, and losing our primary financial partner, our lender, and all of those things, it absolutely made us a much better company. In fact, I don't think my brother's company could be that without that kind of a painful lesson.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be learned. Once again, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about, we went from having about 140 employees down to 9. And, the 9 of us just sticking together and saying that we're going to do this. And here's the plan. And just, shrinking the company down. And, I let go of personally 88 people in one day myself, or 78, whatever. There was a lot of people in one day. And I wanted them to hear from me what had happened. And, you just learn a lot. And, I look today, this is, I think, 11 or 12 years later, I really appreciate what we have today in a different way. And I look at decisions and I look at how we go forward just differently than I did before. And it was really a good learning experience for me.
Yeah, definitely. No, it sounds like it. And obviously you've expanded quite a bit from those days. Are you past the 140 people?
No, actually we're less. We're about 100 right now.
100 right now. Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, not to get too personal, but I mean, from a revenue standpoint, you've exceeded those days.
Oh yeah, we far exceeded where we were.
Yeah. I think that's really interesting. Again, kind of going back from my personal experience. I mean, I think we were at, if I recall correctly, it was, 165 employees, then, down to 60 employees. But then, my brother's revenue is far exceeded that. He did not have that many employees. But absolutely, I think you just get a whole lot smarter and you do things much more efficiently going forward.
Yeah. And I also, once again, I think it gave us a chance to reinvent ourselves. And by reinventing yourself, you go into a whole different model. And at that point, technology was really starting to take over in a lot of areas. We just, took advantage of that.
So tell me about that technology expansion. I know that you all are very, very involved with e-commerce. How did that play into your rebirthing here in '07?
Yeah, we had stores back at the time that were wholesale only, geared towards only towards hairdressers. And obviously, when we went through that, we had to close all of our stores. And by going forward into our model today, we do, about 85% of our overall business online. We trained our customers to order online through our website. And it took us probably about 6 to 7 years of hard work to get it to where it is today. It didn't happen overnight, but we really worked hard at that. We armed our people with laptops, and they just go to market in a different way than we did before.
So by training your customers, those salon owners or stylists, did you give incentives, or how did you get them to say it is better to buy online? What was the carrot here?
The biggest carrot that we had, honestly, it was just free shipping.
Okay.
That's when we started. We did free shipping for any orders online. And then over a period of time, we raised that. And we look at it as a marketing expense, because we don't, come anywhere close to breaking even. But it was a way for us to get our customers to order online. The expense of the stores, obviously, we didn't have anymore. So it was a much more profitable sale for us. And also, we trained our salespeople to call on salons in a different way. They service them differently now. We still have salespeople that go in and take orders, because certain customers want us to take their orders. But they spend more time with their customers talking about different ways to help them grow their business and different offerings that we have, instead of going every Tuesday to pick up an order or every other Tuesday to pick up an order. It's a different type of relationship.
Sure. Yeah. No more milk run anymore. They're going around and they get to actually talk to people. And I think that's a struggle for a lot of people who are either, investing more in their e-commerce presence. They're questioning what happens to that outside sales presence. And I think it sounds to me like you found a very good balance between the two of them and really shifted the responsibility of, that outside sales consultant.
We're pressing on that, and we're adding people. We're going to be up to 50 salespeople probably in the next month or two. And I feel that, a lot of industries have the salesperson's position has really changed or gone away. And I still feel in our industry, the service business is where we're in the service business, and you have to do it with people. You just have to do it in a different way today than you did 10 years ago or 5 years ago.
So speaking of that, and I think that's really a fascinating point, actually, because as I said before, when you move to that e-commerce, a lot of people think that, okay, well, I get to drop my salespeople now, and all this is going to come magically into the system, and it's going to go right to the warehouse, and then it'll be shipped out via UPS, FedEx, or whoever you may use. What is the role of a sales consultant in your company today? And what is the new role, I guess, new expectation of that sales consultant?
The expectation is to really do more business with less customers. Once you get a customer on board, it's how do you dominate within that salon, right? How do you do more and more business where we're their biggest partner? I think that's a part of it. I also think obviously there's territories that we're trying to grow. It's all about getting new accounts on board. And, our saying as a company is we always want to lead the dance with who we went to the dance with, not somebody else. And keeping that relationship with those customers, just like we're trying to have a relationship with the manufacturers. But at the end of the day, the salesperson's role is to sit with the customer and really help them grow their business. And we know the more we can help them grow their business, the more they're going to want to do business with us.
And again, with those sales consultants, are they primarily courting or spending time with your salon owners or, someone who has a larger check to write versus an individual stylist?
Yeah. So the individual stylist in our industry is called booth rental, where an independent stylist has their own business within a larger space. It's almost like they're renting from a landlord, and there's a lot of them at once. So there's a couple different types of customers that we're doing business with, right? So the independents, do a lot of online ordering, and also the salespeople are in there a little bit less frequently because it's hard to catch them. But with the full service salons, they're in there on a regular basis, and it's kind of like on the needs of the salon owner. Because I think everybody's biggest asset right now is their time and how they spend their time. And it's amazing to me in the 31 years I've been doing this, how the business has evolved and how the way to call on a customer, what the customer's needs have evolved. And back when I started, it was more about a personal relationship. Now the relationship's still there, but it's all business as well. And they want to know, what you have to offer them to help them grow.
Well, and I think another nuance in your business is the preference business, that there is, a lot of media that can sway the customer base very, very quickly. I know that, one person in your industry really was, again, more nail polish and color and things like that, color can change so frequently, so quickly. They see someone on a talk show and they say, oh, I have to have that color. All of a sudden your inventory is way off.
Yeah, it's hard to guess.
Yeah,
there's certain colors when it comes to hair color you can be pretty reliable on. They're going to be the group, but seasons change. Social media is so big right now, and all these influencers that are out there that are talking about different things, and whether it's shades of color or hair extensions or smoothing treatments, whatever the case may be, it's amazing how much of an impact they have in the marketplace.
When I saw you last, we learned a lot about social media and influencers, and those questions came out. And I noticed, I think actually you are hiring more and more marketing managers, doubling down on sales consultants as well. But harnessing the social media aspect here, this has got to be a big, big initiative for you all.
Yeah, it's a big part of our future. We have two different types of customers. We have the type of customers that have been with us for a long time, and they have this, certain needs. And we have customers that are, new in business who have a different need. And, trying to satisfy both is really interesting. But from a marketing perspective and social media, they both want it, but they want it in different ways. So we've hired, full-time graphic artists, and we have a lot of people that we wouldn't have had before. And I really think that's the future of the business. If you can help a customer grow through social media, even do their social media for them, give them templates, I think that's, it's really a great way to partner with customers, at least in our industry.
Well, again, I think, it's that value add or that proposition that what is going to differentiate you from another person. But frankly, if you teach them how to grow their business through, let's say, Instagram, for example, you've got some pretty good sized loyalty points when that occurs.
Yeah. And going back to in the beginning of this conversation, you mentioned that the manufacturers are so branded. We really try to, work with them, obviously, on the brands, but also to brand ourselves. What's our key point of difference as a distributor that separates us? And, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about my competitors. There's enough shelf space out there for everybody. I put that time to figuring out how we can be different and who we are and just be the best we can be at that.
Yeah, again, the social media thing, I struggle back and forth when I try, it's baffling at times. And especially after you see programs like you and I, saw in Chicago, they're thinking that, you have to put 12 impressions out a day on Instagram to move the needle. I'm thinking, wow, you've got to have brand managers.
Right. We actually just hired somebody full time, and she just posts all day for us. She's just posting on Facebook and Instagram, and, that's what she's doing. So it's amazing.
It's crazy new world. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Well, good for you guys. I mean, I think that's pretty exciting stuff. And hopefully that does drive that differentiation point for you all.
I'm hoping so too. Yeah.
So, speaking of the younger generations, obviously, much more adept at this stuff than you and I are. But, your second generation, Alex, is in the company. How did you decide to bring him in, or did he say, hey, Dad, I want in, or how did that work?
Yeah, it was my wife's fault.
It was her fault. Yeah. Okay, well, good. You can blame her.
He was graduating from college. My wife said, why don't you try working for Dad? And it was great. The first day he was here, we started him out working in the purchasing department. And his first day here, my door was shut in my office, and he walks in, puts his lunch down on the other side of my desk, and starts eating. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. He's been here now, I think 7 years. And it's been a great 7 years. I'm really lucky to be able to work with him, work together every day.
Oh, that's fantastic. No, that's a pretty great relationship. I thought you'd thrown him out of your office when he did that, but that was a better ending to the story than I had.
At first, I didn't know what to do, and I'm like, how cool is this?
Well, that's terrific. And, again, that relationship back and forth, can work out extremely well. Sometimes first and second generations, there is tension between the two. So what is Alex's role right now in the organization?
Yeah, so Alex's role today, he's our director of marketing. So he oversees marketing and education. And he spends a lot of his time also working closely with our manufacturers because marketing and education is such a big part of it. Okay,
so obviously a brand manager unto himself for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big role in the company because he kind of gets involved, not with sales, there's support for sales, but it's that marketing department is our education department, which is really supporting everything. And once again, it's important to me that he helps to strengthen those relationships with the manufacturers.
Is he the only family member in the organization at all, or?
He is.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's good. Sometimes, I in my last interview with another gentleman, I think he counted 14 different family members in the organization off top of his head, and I thought, oh man, that's a whole lot of arguments at holidays.
Yeah. No, I have 2 other children, and at this point they're not interested. But I'm very lucky. I get to see them every day, and it's great.
Oh, that's terrific. Actually, if I recall correctly, one of your children is a podcaster as well.
Yeah, actually, my son Tony had his own podcast for like 3 years.
Oh, good.
So, yeah.
It's a fun medium. Get to talk to people and peddle your ideas and thoughts, and nobody gets to edit you. You get to say whatever you want,
it's great.
And it just gets put out in the universe there.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
What kind of advice would you give? Especially, you went through that pretty difficult period there, but what advice would you give to younger people wanting to get into distribution, and where should they go to get that information?
I just think there's so much opportunity in distribution. I think you have to find something that you're passionate about. And I think that, really as far as a type of product that you want to distribute, and I just think you have to have a good business plan and find some great partners on the manufacturing and to work with. And it's a lot of hard work. But for me, on a personal basis, I don't even think I work. I love what I do. I lose sleep on Sunday nights, excited to go to work on Monday. So, thinking about my week is exciting to me. So I think that that's the passion that people, I would recommend to somebody if they were getting into it, is that you've got to be passionate about what you're selling and, find some good partners on the manufacturing to work with.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, this has been a pleasure getting to learn a little bit more about your business. And, I look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was an honor to be part of this.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.